If you recall, we had issued a bayan in which we had read out a message of a concerned Khoja community member who had tried to raise awareness about why the AFTAB eShia channel has its comments section turned off. Because they're a community platform who claim that they are devoted to dispelling doubts for the youths especially. But then the question was that if the comment section is closed after watching the video, if they have residual doubts, how do they communicate that with the AFTAB eShia team? They have sealed the comment section. So we did try to raise awareness about that from this video, which was broadcast several weeks ago, and they still haven't taken any action. The comment section is still turned off, which gave rise to more discussions and speculations as to why this could be the case. And perhaps as the Al-Islaah admins had accurately anticipated, there was some discussion about whether AFTAB eShia is really afraid of something. Are they hiding something? As I was thinking about this, I came across another post. It's basically a comment on this video by AFTAB eShia. And the AFTAB eShia team themselves, look at what they wrote. They said, Ayatullah Yūsufī al-Ghrawī answers the following question. Was it physically possible for the caravan to have reached Karbala from Shām by the 20th of Safar? And then look at their description of this video. A very eye-opening answer indeed. So you can see in this case, AFTAB eShia found the research-based view of Ayatullah Yūsufī al-Ghrawī very eye-opening. But then our learned community member has been watching Al-Islaah lectures as well. So he probably would have remembered in this video of Al-Islaah, from the 1 hour mark, you will notice demolition of Dua Tawassul by Ayatullah Hādī al-Ghrawī. He's the same Ayatullah that AFTAB eShia is promoting in this video. But the interesting thing is that the same Ayatullah also has research in which he has demolished Dua Tawassul. And commenting on this video, our learned community member writes that referring to the institutionally accepted scholar quoted in this clip by eShia, let's look at the same scholar's position on the following 3 positions as an example only. Number 1, on the popularly termed Dua Tawassul. Number 2, on some of the aspects of the Fatimiyya. And number 3, on the status of Abu Lu'lu, who's celebrated by some. Because oftentimes when Al-Islaah has tried to bring the evidence for it, sometimes the accusation is that, well, the presenters and the speakers and researchers and scholars on Al-Islaah are not qualified by our standards. They've not been to the Hawza, they don't have station of ijtihad, they're not ayatollahs. All Al-Islaah positions are not just positions that we have come up with randomly. No, they are supported in many instances by the highest level critical and academic scholarship. So what are you going to do about that now? You're now going to wage war against the highest level scholarship of your own sect? So the learned brother goes on to post what he has written about Dua Tawassul. He says, this is the opinion of Ayatullah Shaykh Muḥammad Hādī Yūsufī al-Ghrawī. He says, a man-made so-called dua omitted from my book is Tawassul. Unfortunately, oft labeled Dua Tawassul, when in fact it is not a supplication whatsoever. It does not even bear the scent of the infallibles, alayhimussalam. And it is the most clear-cut example of a fabrication. It is commonly stated that Tawassul is the creation of Nasiruddin al-Tusi, who is a 7th century scholar. However, this is a weak opinion. It should not be assumed that this originates from the infallibles, alayhimussalam. Yani Dua Tawassul, you cannot even assume that this dua has originated from any imam. Even calling it a dua is a mistake, providing ammunition for Salafis to criticize Shi'ism. Dua means beseeching the Lord. Dua means giving one's attention solely to the Creator. However, this man-made dua is an intercession to the infallibles. And the brother here has not posted a link to the reference, but if you come to our research paper on Dua Tawassul, authentic supplication or ghali fabrication. And in this, we have presented the opinion of Ayatullah Shaykh Muḥammad Hādī al-Yūsufī al-Ghrawī against Dua Tawassul. We have quoted the Arabic نموذج من المخترعات التي لم نضعها في كتابنا منهاج الحياة في الأدعية والزيارات التوسل الذي اشتهر للأسف باسم دعاء التوسل. So we've given the Arabic text, we've translated it into English, a sample of man-made invented fabrication which we have not included in our book منهاج الحياة في الأدعية والزيارات is التوسل, which has unfortunately become famous as دعاء التوسل, when in fact it is not a dua, it is not a supplication to begin with. And then he goes on to say the presence of the names of the ma'sumin, the infallibles in it, one after the other, is the clearest dalil, proof that this invocation is a fabrication and that it could not have been dictated by the imam. And I've mentioned that this is so because critical scholarship of 12 Imami Hadith and Rijal has already established that there existed no concept of 12verism among the imamis during the pre-occultation period, and no anticipation of imamate getting capped at 12 imams, which would not have been the case if the imams alayhimussalam had been teaching their companions supplications with the names of all the 12 imams listed in them. So if Imam Sadiq or Imam al-Kadhim had been teaching his companions supplications which have the names of all the 12 imams, then you can't explain much of Shia history, because in Shia history, the Shias broke into sects. Some stopped at the 7th imam, some stopped at the 6th imam, some after the 6th imam believed in the imamah of Abdullah bin Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Some after Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, they stopped on Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and they didn't accept imamah of Ar-Rida alayhi salam. And these were some of the most learned companions of the 7th imam who fell into the Waqifa fitna. So all of this would not have happened if Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam had been teaching their supplications, du'as, in which all the names of the 12 imams were listed one after the other, the way you find them listed in Dua Tawassul. Because then the Shia would just look at Dua Tawassul and be like, oh, Abdullah bin Ja'far cannot be the next imam. Well, if Dua Tawassul had been in circulation, if it had been taught by the imams, then people would bring it out and say, look, just read Dua Tawassul, you got all the names of the 12 imams. What do you mean imamah has stopped at al-Kadhim alayhi salam? And how will you recite Dua Tawassul next Tuesday if you reject Imam al-Rida alayhi salam? He's mentioned in Dua Tawassul. So do you see how these kinds of supplications, once you go to the earliest and most authoritative sources and you read Shia history properly, not the highlighter version that they teach you at madrasa, or you realize that it's impossible for Dua Tawassul to have existed in the time of the imams. And this is what is confirmed by the highest level scholarship. And you can see here we've given the full reference and also a reference to an independent translation. What this brother trying to ask, what would AFTAB eShia have to say about this? Would they now say that Ayatullah Shaykh Hādī al-Yūsufī al-Ghrawī is now a deviant? He's an alternative thinker because he has rejected Dua Tawassul. And not only has he rejected Dua Tawassul, by the way, he has other research-based positions. For example, on Fatimiyya, and in this YouTube clip, in the scholar's own voice, he decries some of the oft-repeated exaggerations regarding the musibah of Sayyidah Fatima salamullahi alayha. And then number 3, on Abu Lu'lu, the murderer of the second caliph, Umar, when he's asked, who is Abu Lu'lu and is he a Shia personality? And his answer is, Abu Lu'lu is mentioned in volume 4 of my book, Mawsu'atu al-Tarikh al-Islami. This is his encyclopedia. To summarize, he was a captive from Ayn al-Tamr in Iraq during the reign of the first caliph. He was a Magian or Christian and became Muslim. Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah brought him to Medina with the permission of the second caliph. He was a carpenter and blacksmith, and they imposed a tax of 2 dirhams onto him every day. So he complained about this to Umar, and Umar did not reduce this. So he made a 2-headed dagger and ambushed Umar at Fajr prayers, then stabbed him and committed suicide. So to hell with him, and what an evil destination, and there is no evidence for his salvation. Whereas in some ignorant sectarian Shia gatherings, Abu Lu'lu unfortunately sometimes is celebrated as some kind of hero, but the highest level scholarship is saying that he is somebody who is condemned, who is accursed, and who belongs in hell actually because he committed suicide. So as you can see, these are some of the views of Ayatullah al-Yūsufī al-Ghrawī. And so this is what AFTAB eShia has been hiding from its viewership, or they're not aware of it. Perhaps this raises a very important point that, look, the positions and the views and opinions and research that Al-Islah has been presenting, you people have been busy labeling it as, oh, deviant thinking, alternative thinking, this thinking, that thinking, and you've been trying to discredit it by saying that, oh, the people who present it on Al-Islah are not people associated with the seminary, they're not Ayatollahs, they're not this, they're not. And we have been repeatedly reminding you that, Baba, even if I was illiterate, even if I was a complete ignoramus, none of what I have presented would become batil. Do you know why? Because everything that I presented, I didn't present from my pockets. I presented from the Quran, from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran verified authentic statements of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And after them, from the statements of the classical Shia scholars, medieval Shia scholars, contemporary Shia scholars. We've been presenting all of this research in front of you to make you understand that this isn't about me. This isn't my personal opinion. This isn't even my personal research. I may agree with it, but my agreeing with it is not what makes it right. The evidence and dalil behind it is what makes it right. The tragedy, unfortunately, is that the top level Khoja leadership and even platforms like AFTAB eShia, they have been trying to dismiss and sweep all this research and these exposés that Al-Islah has been broadcasting and presenting. They've been trying to sweep them under the carpet and dismiss them by saying, oh, well, these are deviant and alternative thinkers. They don't have Hawza qualifications. They don't have ijtihad. They're not Ayatollahs. Well, now we have shown you that your own Ayatollah, whom you have promoted on your own YouTube channel, he has come out very openly against Dua Tawassul. Sometimes these channels, once you expose them to research like this, they are so immature at times that there is a fear fear that they might take down this video and be like, oh, okay, so if his view is this on Dua Tawassul, then, oh, he must be a deviant and alternative thinker. But look, before you disassociate from him, this is what you need to consider. Ayatullah al-Yūsufī al-Ghrawī, he studied fiqh, jurisprudence and usul al-fiqh, principles of jurisprudence, under the late Ayatullah Syed Abul Qasim al-Khū'i. He's a student of Sayyid al-Khū'i. Additionally, he studied the fiqh al-mu'amalat, jurisprudence of transactions, under the late Imam al-Khomeini. So Ayatullah al-Hādī al-Yūsufī al-Ghrawī is someone who has studied under both Ayatullah Sayyid Abul Qasim al-Khū'i and Ayatullah Sayyid Ruhullah al-Khomeini. He also has a profile page on the website of the prestigious Markaz al-Abhāth al-Aqā'idiyya, Center for Belief Researches, which was founded under the auspices and supervision of the office of the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali al-Husseini as-Sistani. This is Markaz al-Abhāth al-Aqā'idiyya. You can see this is the Theological Research Center, and he has a profile page on the website of this Theological Research Center, which has been set up under the supervision and ri'ayah of the office of Ayatollah al-Uzma as-Sayyid Ali al-Husseini as-Sistani. So you can see this is a scholar who has been vouched for by the highest level Hawza scholarship. So now what is AFTAB eShia and the community, Khoja community leadership, going to say? That because he has discredited Dua Tawassul, because he has been critical of certain narratives that you promote during Fatimiyya, because he has discredited Abu Lu'lu and denied salvation for him, what are you going to do now? Are you going to do with him what you did with us? In the sense that for 20 years, we've been lecturing on the pulpit, and we were hailed as being one of the leading lights and one of the most promising scholars of the school of Ahlul Bayt. But because we came out and revealed to you some of the areas where you have gone against very, very clear warnings of Allah in the Quran, but because the research that we showcased, because the warnings that we shared were not to your taste, they were not to your liking, and they challenged and undermined certain cherished traditions within your community, all of a sudden you tried to discredit us, you tried to character assassinate us, which is fine. We signed up for this. If you ask me, one of my favorite videos on the entire Al-Islaah channel, it is this video.
I mean, this is the state of affairs. We want everyone, every sect, every religion to think critically and question their own religion and their own scholars, but we don't want to do the same thing. Now, I just wanted to highlight that, every sect has this standard line of argumentation. When anyone stands up and questions something or thinks critically, if it's a normal person, they go like, come on, have you even studied Arabic? You don't even know the basics of Arabic. How can you talk about all these things? Our scholars have studied for 80 years, I mean, how can they be wrong? Now, if you have someone who actually speaks Arabic, who's an expert in Arabic, then they'll be like, come on, just because you know Arabic doesn't mean that you can comment on religious matters. These are, very deep discussions about theology and fiqh and ilm al-rijal. Okay, now you have someone who has actually studied theology, ilm al-rijal, ilm al-hadith. He has memorized the Quran. They're like, come on, just because you've memorized the Quran and studied all of these subjects on your own doesn't mean you can actually comment on these things. You need to study in the Hawza. Okay, then you have some people who have studied in the Hawza and they say these things. They're like, come on, this is just a low-level scholar. Our Maraji have studied all these things for years, and how can they be wrong? And then you actually have some Maraji and Mujtahideen who say these things. Then they run out of arguments and they're like, yeah, he's just a deviant, this was a fringe guy, he was a deviant, he has already been refuted. So, I mean, if they don't want to believe, they will never believe. They'll have all these arguments against you, but in the end, they'll be like, yeah, this guy's just a deviant,
But now the question is that, are you going to do the same with this grand Ayatollah? Ayatullah Shaykh Muḥammad Hādī al-Yūsufī al-Ghrawī. Is he going to meet the same fate at your hands? This is where you need to introspect and ask yourself, maybe what Al-Islaah has been telling you isn't so crazy and absurd after all. Maybe it isn't just, the presenters might be Ninda Bacha. The research and guidance that we are presenting you is not the composition, it's not the invention of Ninda Bachas. It is very solid guidance, which is found in the Quran, found in the Hadith, in the Sunnah, in our earliest sources, and it's supported by the weight of very high-level classical and contemporary scholarship, which you cannot afford to just dismiss and write off just like that.